We are so happy to see all of you, and welcome to the English Without Borders Thursday webinars. And we are very happy to host today Donista Solijonova, who will talk about strategies for conducting book club. Hello, Donista, nice to see you. Welcome to everyone. Without Borders. Yeah, and before we get started, let me introduce and share some information about Donista Solijonova. Dear participants who are joining us via Zoom or Facebook, please use your chance to ask questions and also just leave your questions in the chat box as well as in the comment box on Facebook. So we'll be just passing them later on to our speaker. So Donista Solijonova has been working as an English instructor at the School of Professional and Continuing Education at the University of Central Asia since 2014. She has graduated from Khorog State University in 2007 and during her studies visited the USA through the Global UGRAD Program, majoring in education. Besides her job at SPCE, Donista is the head of the Teachers Association of GBAO, Alumni of OPEN Winter 2021, Cambridge speaking examiner and volunteer. Donista has successfully received her CELTA Certificate in August 2021 and completed the Leadership Management Certificate program of TESOL online course recently. She has been into teaching since 2006 and is currently teaching at Postgraduate Preparatory Program, IELTS and Academic courses. Donista has received Best English Instructor Award in 2020 and has published an article in the most readable magazine in the world, the Forum magazine. So Donista, welcome to the English Without Borders, and we are very happy to see you today. And I'm giving the floor over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nasiba. I am privileged to be here with you today. Hello, everyone. I hope you'll enjoy the presentation. Let me share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, hello again. Today we will go through the strategies for conducting book club. And this is our plan for today's session. We will generally get introduced with book club, the strategies for conducting book club, and the activities and the methodologies I have used in my classes, and as well as finally we finish with questions and answers. So before we start, I don't want to be lecturing here all the time. I would like you to be actively participating in our today's webinar, because this should be a two-way discussion. All of you are professionals, and many of you might have conducted book club in your classes, and we, as teachers, we have all been into teaching reading all the time. This is like a different way of doing it. So before we move on, I would like you to respond to the three questions you see on the screen. So question number one, what is book club? Question number two, what is its purpose? And question number three, what are some of the challenges? You can respond to only one question, to two questions, maybe to all three questions, depending on how you want to answer. So the floor is yours. Please welcome. Feel free to answer. I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes to answer to the questions. Okay. Very good. You already have some answers. We have the first answer from Luda. It is a club where students have an opportunity to read books and discuss with others. Yes, yes, absolutely. You're right. Gatherings for book lovers. Yes, of course. It is gatherings for book lovers. Oh, we have, I don't want to miss any answers. So let's move on to the next. Thank you for your answers. Book club is to share the books and ideas with others. Good, thank you. Next, the book club is a place where good teachers help students to love than for book reading. Okay, good. What is book club? Book club, students read one book and discuss it together as a group. Yes, good, thank you. Its purpose is to develop reading skills. Absolutely, yes. Okay, yes, we have next to share their reflection. Okay, yes, why not? Okay, any other answers? Yeah, from Harini. So it is a discussion between students. Very close. Purpose is to broaden students' horizon on various topics, improve critical thinking, vocabulary, and express ideas. Thank you, Savri. Yes. Should be challenges, young generation reads less. Of course, yes, absolutely agree. To understand the message of the writer. Yes, thank you, Bhakti Begim. And let's give some more time for others to answer. I think there is students have discussion about the book which they read. Yes, and not more. Thank you. This is also part of a book club. The challenge is that some students do not have a reading habit, therefore they find it difficult or boring. This is unfortunately our mutual problem and cultural issue where when students are not much into reading. Yes, thank you, Mavludi, you're right. To develop critical thinking, absolutely. Reading circle needs to be cultivated. Needs to be cultivated with young generation to boost critical thinking, absolutely. The purpose of the most challenges is the new technologies which do not allow our kids for reading. New technologies could be good if the book in your gadgets instead of games. Yes, Firuz, I agree. Yes. Okay, thank you very much, dear participants. Another challenge is the writing structure, which is at times complicated. Yes, of course, writing is also something we have issues with. It's hard to get students to write. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Challenges, topic are not interesting, becomes boring for readers to read. Yes, Saudi, yes, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So, good. Thank you very much for your active participation. We'll have some more activities later. But for now, yes, let's move on. So what is book club? Most of you have already answered the question. This is actually the chance for the students to get together and read books, but not different books, but in a book club, all the students, along with the teacher, they read one book together. What is the purpose? The purpose of book club is to get the students to read for pleasure. So they're not required to get any certain marks for that, any pass or fail. No, nothing is there. Their students just read for pleasure, to get that habit of reading, and of course, to discuss, to debate, to question, to critically, as many of you have mentioned, analyze the situations that are given in the book, and to come up to certain solutions to perhaps some of the problems or challenges the people face while the characters face in the book. What are some of the challenges? The first challenge is that sometimes when a teacher picks one book for the whole group, in many cases, not everyone may like the book, because we know that tastes are different. Some people prefer detective stories, others prefer, for example, love stories. And the book that is chosen, in many cases, it should be the decision of most of the participants of that book club or book group session, so that it fits the desires of every student within that club and within that group that they are discussing and going on with that book. So those are the challenges, and sometimes not all the time students read the material that they should. Sometimes they always come with excuses. In many cases, they say we didn't have time, it was hard, and it is not always easy to get them to read the material the teachers ask them to do. And that's why some of the strategies and methodology that I use in my classes may help you to overcome these challenges. Okay, here we move on to the next slide. So before we move on, I would like you to complete a poll. Here are the strategies. Perhaps some of you have already used many of those. And let's look at the percentages. How many of you are familiar with the strategies? So here is the name. We'll go into detail with each strategy. But for now, I would like you to complete a poll where you have to choose the strategies that you have used in your classes. So we have here summary, we have here text to self, text to world, text to text, sensory images, predictions, wondering questions and inferences, and we have book club that is mostly done in written form. So I would kindly ask Gula to share the poll. So you choose the one that you have done, and let's see what else I can share with you to familiarize you more with book club and its strategies. Eleonora?
Donista, can we move forward because we have some technical issues?
Okay. Okay, then what we will do, no problem. Then what we can do, could you please type in the chat box which of the strategies you have used in your classes, an alternative version to the poll. Let me give you just 1 to 2 minutes to see what is something you've used. I have answers from Savri. She has used prediction, summary. Thank you, Firuz. Thank you, Firuz. Summary. Wow, Khairiniso has used all of them. Thank you. Okay. Nisika, yes, predictions. Yes, prediction is most. Yes, text to text. Good, Firuz. Thank you. Book in hand, text to text, and the world, prediction. Gist, thank you, Navar. Wondering question and inferences. Yes, this is something that we keep using as well. Thank you, Nasiba. Thank you, Begim, yes. Wondering. Okay. Post-reading activities as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nasiba. Yes, good. So as we have already seen, most of you had used predictions, and it means that many of you are well familiar with that predicting strategy, which is we use it in our classes a lot. And some of the others, perhaps the name might be new for you, but I'm sure that you've done them in your classes. So let's move on to the next slide. And here we start with this summary. Okay. So here you can see a hand. Okay, let's say, give me 5. This is known as a summary. And what I do in my class, I would give my student a big flip chart where they write these, they draw this hand, and they respond to these 5 questions. So the question is who, what, where, when, why, and then we finally have this how question. So what is the purpose of summary and this book in hand? The purpose of this strategy is to summarize the story in short. And what we typically do, depending on whether you ask your students to do the chapter or whether you ask to do them to read 3 to 4 pages, this strategy can be implemented for both. You can either write a big summary of one chapter, or you can divide that chapter into 3 or 4 parts and give it to your students to write this book in hand. What is good about this strategy? It gives the students chance to see, again, in summary, in short, to look at that particular part of the book or part of the story, who was there, what happened, where it was, when it was. Basically, the settings are the fingers, and how, in summary, tells us the plot of that particular part of the book or chapter of the book. And another good thing about this strategy is that it allows those who didn't read that part, or who were absent, or who were lazy to go through those pages, it gives them a chance to understand and to know what happened in the story. So that's why I like this strategy. And now we move on to the next strategy, that is the second one, and we call this text to self. Some of you have mentioned that you've used, I think that was Firuz who said text to text. But what is text to self? Text to self is another strategy where students read a particular situation in the book, and then they compare it with something similar that happened to themselves. So let's say that in the book is something like a failure, a character face, and then the person might have had similar situation. And here students now have a chance to share the same situation that happened to themselves in life. What is good about this particular strategy is that here students make connection between themselves and the text, which allows them, which kind of raises their interest in reading that book, and see how the person dealt, how the character, for example, dealt with a certain situation in the book, and how they have personally responded to that thing in their life. And text to world is the same thing. You see what is in the text, but here you make that connection not with yourself, but maybe with the person you know who had a very similar situation. Maybe you know your neighbor, maybe that situation happened in your town, in your city, in your area, in your neighborhood, or in your country. That strategy is text to world. So here you make connection with the area you live in, with your surrounding, which is also very interesting for students to do and to practice. Then next we have text to text strategy. And here you make now connection with a different text that you read was very similar to the one that you are reading currently, for example, with your in your book club. And that strategy is known as text to text. It is also very interesting. And with text to world, what I personally faced in my class, students started saying that, you know, teacher, I want to make text to Khorog, okay? So they started coming up with their text to Khorog and text to my neighbor and text to myself. And so they started coming with new names for these strategies. But they really like and enjoy it. And making connections builds more space for critical thinking and for analytical thinking, where students then respond to that situation personally and compare it with their surroundings, with another text, with themselves, and so on. The next strategy that we have here is the images. I'm sure many of you are teaching writing, and perhaps you have used these sensory images and you're very well familiar with them in particularly teaching descriptive writing. And here we have the same thing. When we are reading a book, we know that the writer wants us to be inside that book. So what we do with sensory images, these strategies, they allow us to go back and to tell how the situation was, and to picture ourselves in that particular place. For instance, they say what they heard, what they saw, what they, for example, feel in that, how they felt in that particular situation, when they, how they responded to that situation. So sensory images are basically those 5 senses we are dealing with while describing an image or a situation or a place or a person or a thing. So this is what we do with those 5 senses, and this is that sensory images strategy. And then we have predictions. So you know what is prediction, and this is something we're going to practice in our next activity, where we don't know what's going to happen next, but we already make some predictions. Here, students in many cases feel that they are like fortune tellers telling what's going to happen next, and they really enjoy this strategy. And in many cases, some curious students, they jump and they read, for example, that chapter, and when it comes to prediction, they already know the answers, and teachers should be very keen on that, not allowing the students to read it beforehand. And in many cases, to overcome this challenge, what we do, we print the story, but we don't print the end of it or the continuation, and then so that we give equal chance to everyone to practice this strategy for making predictions. Next is wondering, questions, and inferencing. Again, we come back to this critical thinking, analytical thinking skills, where students want to wonder and to question and to talk to the text. So what I personally love doing whenever I read whatever article is that, I usually put question marks next to it, and I write it. If I'm not allowed to write on the book, I write it on a separate piece of paper, and then later when I read, I see if I found an answer to my question, or is it still a question. And what happens here when students are wondering and they're asking questions and they're making inferences, in book club, they have this chance, they have that floor to share their ideas, to share their questions, to share their concerns. And particularly with these strategies, what I really love doing is my press conference activity, where I ask my students to be the characters in the book, and then the students who are interested, who have many questions to that particular character of the book, they ask them to the students who is in the class, and that students tries to respond to their answers, in order to satisfy their needs. And then later in the book, they find out whether their questions and wondering and inferences were up to the point, or they were very far from what their ideas were. And then later we have book log. That is another strategy. And book log is more to do with writing, where students read, and then we now integrate our reading with writing. So reading and writing, they always they go together. And here what we do, students write in their book log. They either describe the situation, they either respond to some of the questions they were posing prior to reading that particular part of the book, or in their book log, they just write about their feelings, what they think about the story, who is their favorite character of the story, who is someone they don't like, or they write some of their perhaps disappointments or surprises. Like sometimes we read and then we read the book, and then we have certain positive characters in the book, we have certain negative characters. They can write about their attitudes, keep in the book log. Or another way of book log is a teacher just poses a question, an intriguing question, or a question that raises critical or analytical thinking skills. So they pose those questions, and students simply respond to those questions the way they wish. And then book log can be something students would prefer to share with each other, or it would be something they want to keep only to themselves and share sometimes with a teacher as well. So depending how you decide as teacher to keep those book logs and how to work with them, this is another way of building that relationship. This time, not through just discussion and talking and text to self and summary and those strategies, but through writing. Very close to journal writing, but still about basically focusing on the book, on its plot and its characters. Okay, I have lectured a lot, so let's practice again a little bit. And here, I would like you to practice this prediction strategy. This is a short text. I will read it out for you, and you can see it on your screens as well. So you go through it, and you respond to the 3 questions that are there. Again, if you want, you can respond to all 3, or you can choose just one particular question and respond to that one question. So let me read it out for you. Miranda was sitting by the window, thinking deeply about that situation. She never expected it to turn around that way. Her last hope, desire, and ambitions were now under question. She found it hard to resist her faith that something deep inside was promising and convincing. Then she stood up, took her mobile, and made the most important call in her life. So, what was the situation, in your opinion? Who do you think she called and why? And what is going to happen next? There are some assumptions, some inferences, some wondering questions as well. And the last is more to deal with predictions. So, dear audience, you have 2 to 3 minutes. You're welcome. Okay, answers are starting to come. Okay. Okay, thank you, dear all. So I will start reading, and those who are currently writing, you are welcome to post your answers. The first answer here is from Nasiba. Thank you. So let's see what Nasiba is predicting. So she agreed to arranged marriage to save the life of her sick mother, and she called to secret and gave her consent to marry despite she didn't love him. Thank you very much. Very interesting, Nasiba. So Savri has written, she wasn't in a good mood. Something didn't happen to her the way she wanted it, and she was still optimistic. She would probably make a phone call or to her best friend to share her despair. Thank you very much, Savri. Yes, this is very typical for our girls to share our despair with our girlfriends. So Natya is writing, she's forced to do something illegal. Her future depends on it. So she finally decides to go for it. Thank you, Natya. Yes, maybe. or to her mom. Yes, Sauri, very likely we call our moms. Maybe she was a witness of an accident and she hid the truth, but later she regretted and decided to tell the truth to save a non-guilty person from being sentenced to life imprisonment. Thank you, Nasiba. Yes, thank you. Firuz, she was hoping to enter to the university, but because of her last test, she wasn't so persuasive about it, but she was hoping. Thank you. Why not? Mavluda is writing, I think she was thinking about her future life. She received a marriage proposal. Like you and Nasiba look at the same direction, but it's not like the person that manages her close friend. Finally, she decided to call him and say no. Okay, why not to marry a close friend, Mavluda? Thank you. I think she was thinking about her marriage. Yes, this is something that makes us think a lot, right, about our marriage. So she decided to accept the invitation. Thank you, Munawar. And from EWB to everyone, she got an email from the college saying that she had been put on a waiting list. She was so confident that she would get the scholarship from Harvard. Oh, that's so nice, from Harvard. Now all her dreams and plans are under question. She remembered the email she got a week before from another college, which was not in her top list, but they offered her the full scholarship. So then she decided to call the admission office to say her decision. Thank you very much, WB. Now I want to be in her place with this scholarship. She phoned to her mom. Yes, Zanat Mo is writing, it was her house. She was going to sell it. She grew up there and it was difficult for her to sell it. Thank you, Zanat Mo. Yes, maybe. From Mehri, I think she divorced her husband. At last she think and called him and she didn't want to divorce him. Okay, thank you. And she called the house seller. Okay, thank you very much, Zanat Mo. Shall we wait for two more and then we move on? Thank you very much. Very interesting predictions. See how interesting and different the predictions are. But again, if you see at gender equality, like girls are more into this family issues, okay, marriage, and and then we had about studies as well, and about divorce and marriage and sickness we had. Very interesting predictions. And now we have, and she called the house seller. We can write novels all together for book club. Of course, why not? This is a project that I had with my students. We had a short story. We read and published it. This is a very nice idea. So she found a lot of money, but her friend took them away from her. She was upset to give them. Then she went and decided to call her friend to take them back because she thought her friend, they were not her friend's money. Okay, thank you, Khainu. So yes, why not? Money is also another financial issue. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your active participation. I'm very glad to read your blogs. And if we have another one, we will read those as well. But for now, let's move on to our next slide. And okay, here is something I wanted to share with all of you. The book that I was conducting for about 3 cycles of postgraduate preparatory program, where the students were at upper intermediate level. And the book was The Reluctant Fundamentalist. This is, by the way, a very interesting book. I would suggest you, if you haven't read it yet, read it. It gives you an insight into West and Eastern cultures. So it is written by Mohsin Hamid, who is himself from Pakistan, but he is residing in USA for a long time. And in the book, he basically talks about an Asian guy, a guy who is gaining popularity in the United States. He falls in love with a girl of a different society, and then he struggles with that love. He experiences both prosperity and wealth, and he always compares the life in the United States with his motherland, with the place he grew up, with Pakistan. And the setting is sometimes in the United States and sometimes it is in Pakistan. And when you read it for the first time, it is hard for the students to understand what's going on because they jump from one place to another, but then they understand the plot. So what we did and what topics we covered while reading this one book, you can see those topics for discussions. We started talking about freedom, equality, respect, and love and betrayal, and everything that was possible. We discussed while going through that book club and reading that book together. So we talked about envy and fail in relationships and truth and lie and imagination, goals and achievements, support, childhood memories, family ties. So you see that through all those topics of discussion, we had a chance to practice all those strategies I have introduced you earlier with, and students had a really good chance to make connections with themselves. And he and Asipa mentioned about writing a whole book through book club. This is a really good idea. And what we did with my students with the project, we have published the book written Discover the World with Us, with one PGPP students with cycle 4 it was. I asked them to come up to compose their own stories. So we compiled those short stories they have composed and we published it as a book and we presented it to each of those students and we still have it and with the memories signed in. And why not to document those ideas? This book club will give them a chance to kind of insight into writing as well. So this is a really good, because and they discuss lots of things through reading a book and discovering it together. And then I have developed my personal methodology through teaching book club, and this activity I call as situational questions, where you read the book with the students, and even if you've read it before, you again, when it comes to teaching that book and going through book club, you read it again and you find new interesting facts and stories from the book. So what we do with situational questions, what I did personally, I would take a paragraph or a problem or an issue I personally like or find interesting to discuss and debate about. I post it, I write it down on a Word document, and I put 4 or 3 questions to that particular situation. And then I divide students in groups so that I give equal chance for everyone to discuss those. And then they start talking and discussing. And teacher just moves from one group into another and see how is it going and what the students are talking about and what questions or concerns they have. And while they're doing this, they're still implementing those strategies. They're still texting it to self. They are still making connection of that situation with their community, with the world around, with themselves. They start making predictions, what will happen in their community, like about that particular situation. So the one is from the book I've just presented, and it says here, for instance, moreover, among the many rules that govern the Bazaar of Lahore, so the writer again takes people to Lahore, to Pakistan, is this: if a woman is harassed by a man, she has the right to appeal to the brotherly instinct of the mob. And the mob is known to beat men who annoy their sisters. Very typical to some of the issues that we're seeing in our in many countries. And with book club, we have to be also sometimes, in many cases, very careful with these emotional and with this religious things. So that's why we try to keep those religious perspective and political issues out. We just basically focus on what is happening inside the book, inside the characters, and text it to ourselves, to our community, to everything that is around, because we cannot deal all the issues. And here are the questions. In your opinion, how can a woman be harassed by a man? Would you support the punishment they consider for this action? What if the woman simply take their revenge from the man and might lie? And how would you personally respond to the situation? For instance, if you've been in that particular situation, again, you text yourself. And here's another one. It says, it talks about beggars and begging. And we know that this is something very common in our place in Tajikistan, begging. So, and then they say, what do you think the reason of not giving money to the beggar? So what is your attitude towards types of beggars? For instance, the one who have no problems with money and those who are disfigured. So sometimes we see that people are disabled and they beg and we give them money, but sometimes you see that people are absolutely fine, but they still keep begging. And then what is the reason for that? And who would you give money and why? So these kind of questions, and I call those situational questions, where you take the situation from the book, you pose some questions, and you ask students to think analytically and critically and analyze that particular situation. Okay, and then here we're moving to the next slide. Okay. And this is basically some other activities I have used in my classes, like questions. We know we all have open-ended question, we have pair question, we have group question, we have the situational questions, that the ones that I have presented. Then in our book club or whatever, like book group or how you prefer to call it, we have discussion and debates where some students are for a certain punishment, for instance, like when they punish a man for just looking at their sisters, and some are against, and then you ask students to debate, and as teachers you just add score for the group that wins the debate, or you just kind of do not give to the group who were not able to convince their opponents to agree with their view. And discussion debates, you've done a lot, you know how they go. But in my book clubs, I personally have used music and songs as well. I have integrated them with song as well. Like in that particular booklet I have told you about, there is one situation where the girl kind of says goodbye to the boy and they no longer see each other. And before students went into that chapter, what I did, I put the song Just One Last Dance that is sang by Sarah. And they listened to that music, and I asked them now to make predictions. So what do you think will happen next? Why I put that particular song for you, and what kind of emotions you felt? And like kind of this, where I integrated music and songs with the book, or with the particular situation that was in the book. Next is charts and tables. So you can create certain charts with the characteristics of the people. So what I did, for instance, I would write on a Word document the names of the 3 main characters, and then I would put positive and negative next to them, and I would give those tables to the students writing their opinion about that particular character. What is something you like about that person? What is something you don't like? And then come up with answers to that, why you like it, why you don't like it. And then students just move around and they tell each other what they like about that particular character, what they don't like. They mingle and they share ideas and they talk. It gives them a chance to, again, critically connect the characters with themselves and the other people around. Then we have pictures and graphic organizers. You can sometimes find the pictures of certain characters that you mentioned in the book on the internet. So I love this Google. It is our help. It helps teachers a lot. So we take tons of materials from there. So you can find the many interesting pictures of the characters in the book or the main characters are available on the internet. So you can take those pictures and come up with certain ideas. Then I have used videos and TED Talks. I have integrated those into my book club as well. So what we do here, for instance, in one of the stories, they talk about illnesses. So we know that there are tons of TED Talks available online. So you just bring one into class and you show it to the students. And this gives them to look at that particular situation in the book from a different angle, from a different perspective, from the idea of an expert, what they think. So again, another flow for discussion, for critically analyzing the situation, and for texting to world and to self and to text and so on. And then we have presentation and research. So presentation and research, what I mean by this, like by the end of the book group or book club, when we finish the book, we have covered so many topics. Like I showed you the one that I have discussed in my class with my students with the Reluctant Fundamentalist. And what I did, I asked my students to choose one particular topic. For instance, one chose freedom, another one begging, another one betrayal, another one illness. So they all chose different topics. And then what I asked them to do, I asked them to develop 4 to 5 questions that they are interested to know about, and go and ask those questions to 4 different age group people to do research on what other people think about that particular topic in their community. So they, for instance, if they take divorce, they would develop 5 questions to that topic. They would go outside, they would ask teenagers, they would ask middle-aged people, they would ask experts or scholars, they would ask old age people, 70 or 60 and above. And then they interview those people, they write their answers, and when they come to class, they come with a statistic, with the research, with something they have done in the class, going out, seeing and examining and questioning people and bringing it to the class, and now comparing it. What were their answers to that particular situation and how they discussed it, and what other people outside think about that particular thing. And this is something very, very interesting, because students make research and they learn a lot from the research, and then they come and they say, teacher, you see, the answers are very different. Our answers are very different from those who were much older than us, and from those who are in schools. And in many cases, they come up with certain proof to what they have discussed in class, what other people think out there. And it's not necessarily those who are in education. I asked them to go and interview their grandparents, go and interview their little sister, just to see and to understand their view and compare it with them. Again, making connections and critically analyzing the situation that makes it very, very interesting. And then, of course, we have role plays. I'm sure many of you have done role plays in your classes. We take this certain situation, we ask them, okay, role play it in a different way. How would you respond to that if you were that character? Then we have mingling and interviews. I ask sometimes students to interview each other about a certain situation in the book. And then for those who are lazy to read, I have this in-class reading activity as well. I make them in many cases to do this reading in class, so that they get that habit. And then when they see that everyone is interested, and even those lazy ones, they start reading, they find something interesting, and in many cases it works. They go home and they continue reading that particular chapter that they started reading in class. And of course, implementing the strategies learned is another idea that we typically do, or the methodology, like we do that text to self and text to old and text to text, and many, many others in our classes. And that's more or less all. Basically, I'm done. But this last activity is something I'd like you just to let's little bit go back. So which strategies did you like most and why? I will later show you the slide for all the strategies we just covered and some of the methods. If you have something else to propose, you're welcome to share it in the chat box so that everyone has a chance to see it. Thank you very much. Let's just, okay, here you are.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Donista. Such a wonderful presentation in terms like you gave a broad idea how to conduct these kind of book clubs. And I hope that the audience really received like very practical kind of strategies, as well as just, steps that they can follow and also just use in their classroom, because, everything starts from a small step, and your presentation was in this term very, very helpful. So thank you very much. Yeah, and of course we are waiting for the questions from our audience.
Yes,
dear participants, yes, please ask your questions And of course, we'll be sharing Donista's presentation very soon on our website, so you can download all the materials of this presentation. And yeah, that would be very useful for all the teachers. Donista, if you could share also some, for example, online resources where you can find some online books, because in many cases, like, teachers really want to start, with simple texts, because, the level of proficiency, English language proficiency of the students might be different in different schools. And therefore, like, starting from kind of small, very small stories, and then going to more deep and more meaningful and more insightful reading, that would be very helpful as well.
Online stories are, I mean, there are tons of online stories that are for free, but I would suggest to start with graded readings. So like for example, if the students are at pre-intermediate level, to choose for them, for book club, a book that is more for elementary level students. So that here they develop not only, the focus of the book club is not on vocabulary or grammar or something like that. The focus is more on talking and critical thinking and analytical thinking skills, and the strategies that I've introduced, more on those. So personally, I really love teachthis.com, and then we have another one, Busy Teacher websites. They are really, really helpful. But what we have,
can you write them in the chat box? So
yes,
people will be just copying them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And then just reading the books of famous writers, like we have Elif Shafak, who has really interesting books like 40 Rules of Love and Honor. They are both very interesting for students to read. And then we have short stories also available. I think those were by Royal Doyle. I will write the name of the author as well. His stories are also very, very interesting and intriguing. It helps students a lot.
Donista, we have a number of questions.
Okay, yes, please.
Yes. The first question, Mauluda asked, which of the strategies that you shared is your favorite one?
Okay, my favorite one. I basically like all those strategies. They're all very interesting, but something that I really most love, I like those when students are making connections with themselves, with the world, and with the text, because it helps them to think about themselves, and they connect the situation to what happened in their life, because we have that culture of not talking about ourselves. We would not either talk about our weaknesses, neither about our strengths. So, and this strategy helps students to glance at themselves from a different perspective. So how they dealt, and then they found in many cases something, lots of positive things in their personalities, and some of the things that they would really want to work on. And I think the main purpose is also to work on ourselves and to develop our personality through any subject that we're teaching, like be it reading or writing or whatever. This is the goal of us as teachers to teach, and of the students as students when they come, they develop personally. And this text to self, along with the world in text, helps students to make those connections. So perhaps the text to self is one of my favorites, and I really love book logs as well, because I'm myself into writing, and it helps students to do those writing. It makes them to do those writing. So I really love those. All are interesting, but those are perhaps my favorite. So thank you, Mawjuda, for the question.
Yeah, great. Like it's really awesome just to receive your feedback, and also just when you share all your tips. Thank you very much. We have a next question. What is your first stage support to those who are either not fond of reading books or not having the habit to do reading?
Okay, yes, this is something that is we face all the time in the class. So for those for lazy readers, first thing I would suggest is, yes, that strategy to make them read in class. This is one thing I would suggest, and the second, to give them the book that is easier than their level of English is. Because sometimes when students read a book that is too difficult, they lose that interest. They say, oh, I don't understand it. And then they have this kind of negative attitude towards themselves and towards reading as a whole. But when they see that they know almost all the words, it becomes automatic. They start reading. And another thing I personally try to develop in myself and in my son, like as a mom, try to make them read like at least 10 or 15 minutes every day at the same time. Like, for example, at 6 o'clock for 10 minutes, read it. And then next day, make yourself to read it for 10 minutes. And then from fourth and fifth days, it becomes a habit. It becomes like something, I need to do something. And then this is how you can develop that habit of reading. You will miss that activity it's like you watch TV at the same time every day, and you do this reading at the same time every day. And the person will not notice, like himself or herself, how the 10 minutes, increases every day. So that is another thing I would suggest for those who are lazy to read.
Yeah, great. 21 days passes and then the habit appears. It's like
yes,
okay.
that habit will come.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We have a next question. Do you ever work on vocabulary that is not known to readers? If yes, what strategies do you imply or use?
Yeah, thank you. So book club is more to do with the reading again and with the critical and analytical thinking skills, but not to teach the vocabulary. So when it comes to vocabulary, in many cases, students then lose that confidence of reading, and then they think that, oh, maybe next day the teacher will ask us these words, and they don't know them, and then they'll become lazy again. It will turn into an English lesson again, where they are required to know the words, they're required to know the grammar, and so on. Book club is a little different from that. There you do not teach the vocabulary. There you do not check the grammar. Even when the students are making mistakes when they're talking, your purpose is to get them speak and not to interrupt them every time they make grammatical mistakes, so they use the wrong word. And then this is just to build that confidence. So I do not teach vocabulary. In case that if that vocabulary is something new, like if they don't know the word beggar, then I would bring the picture of that person, and then I would ask them, so who do you think is that man? And then this man is a beggar. Or they don't know the word gambling, that is also something new in many cases. So I would show them different picture of games, and then I say that this is a kind of a way like gambling where you lose money or this or that. So with visuals, sorry, I basically do it with visuals. That is the quickest way to teach that vocabulary for them, because the purpose of book club is not to teach the vocabulary for the students.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And we have just one last question. And then, the question is, how do you pick up? Yeah, how do you pick up the books for your clubs? Do you pick up those that your students like, or you learn yourself? How do you pick them up?
Okay, when it comes to picking the book, I would, in many cases, I rely on those that I have read, because sometimes in the books we see those scenes that we would not like to discuss in the class, like intimate scenes. Like in many cases, I have read, even in the Reluctant Fundamentalist, you can see intimacy is there or something like that. And in many cases, I choose the books that I have read myself and the one that I liked. And if I propose those books to my students and I see that they are happy with it, then we move on with those. But if it comes when it comes to seeing that they sometimes are not happy with the book, like they come and they say this is something we don't like or majority don't like, and we decided together which book we would like to pick. And in most cases, that is the book that is quite famous. Like we've done 40 Rules of Love with my students, we've done Honor with my students, and we've done that the Reluctant Fundamentalist, we've done Ogi with my students, and these are the books that are quite famous, and they
Donista, we lost you. Donista, please unmute yourself. You're muted.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yes. So in many cases, it's me, the teacher, who chooses the books.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can talk for hours because it's such an interesting topic, and Firuz is also saying so. We won't let you go today because
Thank
it's
you,
such
Firuz.
an interesting topic. Yeah, and we really want this to become a habit in every school that teachers conduct these book clubs, and very soon we'll be able to see that our students are really progressing in terms of critical thinking, in terms of self-development. So yeah, let's start all the strategies that you shared with us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you
On behalf
very
of
much.
all the audience. Yeah, once again, we just convey our big gratitude to you for such a interesting and engaging and as well as just very informative webinar. Thank you very much.